There was an interesting discussion being had online that I felt the need to weigh in on because I thought it was just the most unique take. The question was, can you be a comic book fan without reading the comic books? And I think, kinda. If this was maybe 30 years ago, I would have said no. I don't think that long ago, or even maybe 20, 25 years ago, I probably would have said no. I don't think you could have at that time been a comic book fan without reading the comic books because all media surrounding comic book properties were still typically pretty regulated to comic book fans. I don't know how much there was a crossover into the mainstream at that time with outside of or maybe the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, but I feel like now there's so much comic book media surrounding comic book characters and comic book lore that you can grow an attachment and affection for the characters without ever reading a comic book. Now, does that make you an authority on the characters? Of course not. If a true comic book fan who spent their lives reading comic books, or not even their lives, just they gone back and read a lot of comic books and can tell you a lot of different things about the character and the lore and all the different iterations of the character, that person is more of an expert on it. But that doesn't mean they can also discount how you feel about the character. If you say you like the character for these reasons and you came to understand the character because of these mediums, that's also fair. But I think there's just so much media out there. It's hard to tell someone you can't say that you're a Spider-Man fan or a comic book fan when all they've done is maybe watched all the MCU Spider-Man movies, watched the web series, and watched the Raimi series, and maybe watched Into the Spider-Verse, and then played the Sony Insomniac Spider-Man games. If they say I'm a comic book fan or a Spider-Man fan because I love the character, I think that's fair. Now, if they say I'm a comic book fan specifically, then you can have that argument. Okay, well, which comic books are your favorite? And if they're like, oh, I didn't read them, I just love Spider-Man, then they aren't specifically a comic fan, but they can be a superhero fan or just specifically a Spider-Man fan. But I think you can still become a fan and be knowledgeable about a character, just absorbing that information from a different area. And that's with any character. I think anything's almost any character anyway. I think a lot of things are very popular, especially with games like Marvel Rivals being released. That has introduced a lot of these characters to people who would not have known anything about these characters beforehand. And now they're delving deeper into the lore about the characters. Maybe they've read a couple wikis here and there or whatever, stories surrounding the characters. At that point, I think it's perfectly fair to say I'm a fan of the comic book media and the superheroes that originated from the comic books, but I have personally never read the comic books. I just like what I know about them and what they stand for as far as I've seen. But again, there's that difference. Now you have, I'm a movie fan. Maybe they've only ever watched MCU stuff, and that's all they know about the characters. It's fair for them to say, I love these superheroes, I've only watched the movies. Maybe they've only played the video games. Maybe they love the Arkham games and the Spider-Man games, and they love Batman and Spider-Man because of those games. Then they are a superhero fan who loves the video games, and that's how they've kind of gotten their fix when it comes to the heroes. And then you have pure comic book fans who've said, yeah, I've read the comics since I was a kid. I always read the comics. I still read the comics. I go back and buy them all the time. I feel like there's now that it's more mainstream, there are so many different ways to enjoy the medium and enjoy the universe that you no longer just have to be a pure comic book fan to enjoy these characters. And it's come to pass with a lot of things. I think a lot of Star Wars fans haven't even seen the original trilogy at this point. And maybe they've only seen the most recent trilogy and some of the shows. Maybe they've only seen The Mandalorian or played the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games. And maybe they're a fan of the universe that they've experienced while enjoying that part of it. And they don't know anything about Luke Skywalker's extended story and maybe the extended universe in the books and all that stuff. I think it's perfectly fair to say you enjoy those aspects of it. But that's my take on it. I think you do have to be specific when you tell people how you're a fan, just so you don't get legit checked immediately and then just like, whoa, what do you know? Did you read The Amazing Fantasy 1962? But you're still perfectly valid for enjoying what you enjoy. Thanks for watching. Behave yourself.